This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Dis-cussions. That's right, the new Disney review podcast on the Flying Cow. If you are familiar with the Flying Cow, first of all, my name is Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself. I am your host. If you are familiar with our feed, then you might remember that we used to do a Disney review podcast when the feed first started. It was called Dudes Do Disney. And while this is probably going to be a similar flavor, this is not the rebirth of Dudes Do Disney. Unfortunately, Josh is still on the run from the Disney lawyers. But we wish him well out there. He's staying low to the ground, staying out of trouble. But I finally got the guts to come back and give the Disney lawyers what for. But no, seriously, I am back with a new show, Dis-cussions, bringing you the point of view on Disney movies that you've always wanted to hear, that of a middle-aged white man. Who doesn't want to hear that point of view? Everyone's dying to hear that. But like I said, we're gonna have some fun here talking about Disney movies, just kind of messing around, talking with our friends. And today is no different. I have here with me today the Disney Pixar Movie Battles champion, Mad Madam Kelli Mehan. Kelli, if you can stop laughing at me long enough to speak, why don't you tell us how you're doing?
I'm doing great. I love my introduction. Thank you very much. You always introduce me with such fervor, and I'm still not used to the accolades, I think. So I'm just a little bit red, but thank you. It's always a pleasure to be over here with you, Clay.
No, absolutely not. And I forgot to mention that you are also a Disney podcaster yourself. You have your very own show that I actually have already guested on. I thought it was only fair to trade guest spots. So here you are with me. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Here you are with me in the inaugural episode of the new review podcast, Dis-cussions.
I'm very excited to be here today. Always happy to talk Disney, and let's go.
Right, absolutely. So before we get into the main meat of the episode, I do kind of want to get a background so that people can have an idea of where you're coming from. So what is your Disney history, your distry, if you will?
My distry. Really from early memories, like if I scrape the corners of my brain, if I think Inside Out style, that the memory workers haven't got everything out of my long-term memory, if I try to think of what's there, it comes back to Disney on VHS and on TV. So the early 90s.
The old clamshell cases?
The clamshell cases, just the amount of what they were putting out on VHS as well, because it wasn't just the movies, it was a lot of the TV shows. So I remember like Gummy Bears.
I remember Gummy Bears. Yeah.
Tailspin, the Aladdin TV show. So like a lot of more of the TV show stuff, plus the movie stuff, if that makes sense, because I don't know your thoughts and feelings. I don't know how I could describe the Disney Vault to a kid nowadays. Here's something you love. Wait 10 years to see it again. Like, could you imagine if they did that with Frozen? You just couldn't.
No. And I mean, what's crazy is that half the reason that they did that was kind of to protect their income. You know, they would put a movie out for a short amount of time, but then they'd put it back out. And I remember like when I was a young kid, first born, they were putting it out just in the theaters. You couldn't get it on home video. And then they started releasing it on home video only for a limited time. And like now you can get them all of the time. They're all streaming on Disney Plus. Yeah.
It's just the ease of access to it. Yeah. But like, I remember a lot of those VHS covers because they had like the gold outline or things like that, because that you didn't see them all the time. If you didn't own it, you'd have to hope that either a family member had it, your video store had it, or I remember like going to friends' houses having, like, they'd have the Little Mermaid and I'd be like, wow, look at that. Like, that's amazing. Right? Let's watch that one, please.
Yeah.
Because you just didn't have the access to the streaming. So Disney on VHS is probably my biggest earliest memories. For Alice in Wonderland, though, I didn't have it until I started collecting DVDs.
Sure.
Early 2000s, mid 2000s-ish, and they were making some of the ones more accessible. Like, I remember Snow White, they would always have a really big, like, this is the diamond anniversary, platinum edition, that sort of thing. But for some of the lesser ones, they were in store quite frequently. So Alice, Aristocats, Basil the Great Mouse Detective, ones that weren't as beloved and protected, seemed to be around a lot more often. So Alice I picked up, mid 2000s-ish.
Yeah. I mean, we are discussing Alice in Wonderland because no, you're fine. But I pretty much knew the moment I asked you to do this show that we were going to talk about Alice in Wonderland, because I mean, you're wearing an Alice shirt for those who are listening on, audio, but it's just, your theme song in Movie Battles is Alice in Wonderland. Like, that's kind of the movie I associate you with, is Alice in Wonderland. So like, what is, and if you don't get into too much, if it's like details or anything like that, but what is your connection to Alice in Wonderland? Why do you connect to it so much?
I think coming from having the book as a kid helps. Sure. So it's not just the Disney film, it's the source material and other versions as well. Yeah. So having the book as a kid, and for some reason, I love Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I do not read through the Looking Glass. I reckon I've read it through it once.
Okay.
So I like that first half of the story. And have you ever seen the TV movie version they did in 1999? Have you heard
the one
of
with
it?
Tina Majorino and Whoopi Goldberg? Yes, I do remember that. Yep.
And Gene Wilder as the Mock Turtle and Martin Short as the Mad Hatter.
See, if you had asked me, I would have probably told you that Gene Wilder was the Mad Hatter. That's so weird.
No, I need to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's Martin Short. I don't like the tennille illustration.
It's probably because I associate him so heavily with Willy Wonka. It just him as the Mad Hatter makes sense to me. But you're probably right.
Yeah, so we taped that off the TV. Like, as you did in the 90s.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. Half of my films were films that were, taped up. Half of my films I had to fast forward through commercials while I watched them. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I still remember, like, which specific Barbie doll commercials were on the VHS tape, because those just burned into your brain.
Yeah, I've got certain commercials just, on lockdown. I could just recite for you right now. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's loving the source material as well, and then being an early teenager, connecting to the story of just how nonsensical it is. I guess if you're into that sort of thing, if you grew up loving Roald Dahl as well, that sort of goes hand in hand. Yeah. If you like things that are a bit upside down, quirky, then Alice is a good base for all that.
Right, right in there. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I will say, this is definitely one that I remember watching as a kid, but we didn't own it, but I remember, we probably rented it a lot. But I definitely saw it at least like 3 or 4 times as a kid, because, for me at that age, anything that was animated and, then Disney was a double plus, I was going to watch, I mean, I don't really remember having like any sort of like opinion of like, oh, this is my favorite, or oh, I don't like. I don't think there was one I didn't like.
Yeah.
I just remember, oh, it's a Disney movie. Yay. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that grows on you as you get older, because
I hear that
the nonsensical nature of it almost is more interesting to adults than it is to children.
Very true.
Because kids don't necessarily for them anything fantastical is enough. Some of that nonsense honestly probably went right over my head as a kid, but the older I got, it's the same thing with Willy Wonka. I loved that movie as a kid, but the more I watch it as an adult, the more I appreciate the things that went into it, more than I ever did as a kid.
Kids are living in strong imagination already, whereas as an adult, you're sort of tapping back into that. So the emotions tied to it is a little bit different.
It's true. It's true. But let's go ahead and give a couple of details about the film. Just a couple of trivia notes for anybody that might be taking notes out there that might need to store these things away in the old memory banks. So Alice in Wonderland is a 1951 animated musical fantasy based on the books of Lewis Carroll. It was it was directed by Clyde Geronimi. I believe he was the supervising director, but it's also listed as Wilfred Jackson and Hamilton Luske as well. Music was by Oliver Wallace, and it starred Catherine Beaumont as Alice. Ed Wynn as the Mad Hatter, Jerry Colonna as the March Hare, Sterling Holloway as the Cheshire Cat, Verna Felton as the Queen of Hearts, J. Pat O'Malley as Tweedledum and all of the voices therein, Bill Thompson, lots and lots of other people there. Pinto Colvig actually even makes an appearance in this one. He was a Disney stalwart from the beginning, so always great to have those types of voices in there. But yeah, that is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, you would say, as to especially the voice actors. If I named all of them, we'd be here for quite a while.
You got the biggies.
Yes, people would get bored before we were done, believe me. But yeah, so this film, just to give a couple of notes, I do know this was a passion project for Walt. This was I think this was one of the first ones that he wanted to tell. I think this was kind of right up there with Snow White as kind of in the running to be the first story. He ended up picking Snow White, and things went the way they did. And honestly, it may have been a better idea, because I know, this film did not do well in the box office, but when you actually look back at the history of Disney, especially the early history of Disney, there were actually very few hits. There was Snow White was a huge hit, but then both Pinocchio and Fantasia bombed. They, obviously they achieved acclaim later on. Fantasia maybe less. It has its supporters, it has its detractors. But when I think about the fact that Pinocchio was thought of as a bomb at the time, I'm like, that's insane.
Because especially for winning Oscars as well. You don't really equate those.
Right. Well, and then also the next film that was actually a success was Dumbo.
Oh.
Which is a film that is not held as in high esteem now. I mean, partially because, it is the shortest of all of the features, I believe. And then, of course, there are also some troubling elements of Dumbo that are actually very hard to separate from it, which I think is part of the reason that it isn't as beloved now.
Very true. Very true.
But then, even Bambi wasn't a hit. I think actually their first big hit after that was Saludos Amigos, which is mind-blowing to think about because most people don't think about the package films as really being big hits. And I think that there were some others that did here and there, but I think their next big hit after that was Cinderella. Yeah. So once again, after kind of only doing package films and finally getting another like full narrative film out, he gets Cinderella, he gets a hit, thinks he's back on a roll. And then the very next film, Alice in Wonderland, the one he has been waiting so long to do, comes out and it is a flop.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, this one like hurt him. Like he didn't like people talking about Alice in Wonderland because he took it very personally that it didn't do well. And I'm like, I mean, I am the last person to defend Walt or call him any sort of saint. The man had some issues. But I do feel bad that he felt so bad about this film because it's not a bad film.
No,
it's
not at all.
Actually a very good film. I think it just wasn't what people were looking for because it is very different from any of the other. Honestly, probably what it is the most like is a package film.
Yes, because it's little segments. There's no through line. There's no emotional.
Not really. I mean, they kind of make the White Rabbit a bit of a through line. But yeah, there really isn't a whole lot to connect to there. So, I kind of understand why it bombed, but then I also understand why it gained acclaim as it, as the years went by, people revisited it and realized, actually, this is pretty good.
Very true.
And I do really quick want to talk about the origin story here because as I've discussed before, most Disney films have some sort of source material. Most of them were based on fairy tales or books or different things like that. So a lot of times I like to take a look at the original source material and kind of look at the differences between the two versions. Now, what's interesting in this is that it's actually based on two books. As you mentioned before, it's based on both Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass, Alice Through the Looking Glass being the sequel. And what I find, first of all, interesting is that the major, I mean, like you said, there's not a big plot, but there is kind of a through line going through. It's just kind of very loose. But that main structure really is Alice in Wonderland. They cherry pick shorts here and there from Alice Through the Looking Glass and kind of put them in throughout the Alice in Wonderland kind of structure. And they also do take out some bits. I think the biggest thing that they take out is they just take out a big thread of the character of the Duchess.
The Duchess, yes, and her pig child, yes.
Right, because that's completely removed from this. And I think it really only took place in like two stories in the book. And they either took those out completely, or I think one of them, there's still a thread of it still in there, but the main crux of the Duchess and, like you said, her pig child is removed.
Yeah, because Alice happens on the house and there's like this fish butler and this frog butler outside. So there's all that line and she's just waiting. And then the Duchess, if I remember, is the one who gets summoned by the Queen. So they've had to change that sort of bit of storyline of how she finds the Queen of Hearts because there's no Duchess character. And I think that affects the trial at the end as well. But I think it's so much for the better. I really like the changes they made for the Disney film. But I remember watching the 99 TV movie going, who's this character? Like,
yeah.
what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did their best to leave intact kind of the chaotic nature of the story, because the whole idea is that this is a world of nonsense.
Yes.
That can be a very difficult thing, especially to read a book about. If there's no structure at all, you know, you're going to lose a good bit of your audience. And I think they did a pretty good job of taking the elements that worked in the book and giving them a little bit more narrative structure, but at the same time, leaving the main things going on still nonsensical, still chaotic. You know, I think they actually did a pretty good job of being faithful, at least to the idea of the stories.
Very true. As you sort of said, it is in segments and packages. So they're really just taking chapter by chapter. And that is a very difficult book to adapt, because you can pick it up and put it down at sort of any point and sort of thing. And it is, you can imagine sort of just drawing out this story on a summer's day sort of thing as it was developed. It's not like someone's really sat down and been like, okay, there's narrative development at this point, and this is the peak, and this is the hero's journey and all that. There's none of that.
No. And I mean, the sequel, Through the Looking Glass, seems even more to kind of follow in that line of just basically just little rhymes, like just, you know, separate little, I mean, I haven't read either one, but from what I can tell, just reading about them, it seems like the story structure in that one is even looser.
Yes, it follows like a chessboard, and I've never been able to wrap my head around it. So you're interacting with, that's where you get like the Red Queen and all that, and the knights and whatnot, because Lewis Carroll's a mathematician, so you're always going to have that bit of poetry and rhyme and math and all that good 1800s stuff that they loved. That just does not adapt well for screen. So I like that they brought like the Garden of Flowers from that in, and the Walrus and the Carpenter, and how they changed Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I'm really glad they kept that in a small dose, because it just drags on way too much. And I don't want to see them have a battle about a rattle and things like that. Like, it's just not on. So I like I like how they adapted it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you say we go ahead and kind of just dig into the story? And the way that we do things here is we're not necessarily going to go like scene by scene, line by line, or anything like that. You know, if something pops up to you that you want to discuss, even if it's out of order, feel free. We can feel free to hop around. I do tend to start at the beginning just to kind of give us a starting place, but then we can go really anywhere. So yeah, let's go ahead and dig into this. And the first thing that I noticed, like a lot of the early classics will start off with that storybook beginning. This one does not do that. This one actually starts off with, I wasn't sure if it was like design concepts of the characters, because some of them are similar to the way that they would look, but they're not, it's not like the exact polished look of how they're going to end up looking. It almost seems like, you know, they, you know, either, like I said, they were just in the concept phase when they made these, or they like, you know, briefly sketched these things out and then handed them to a different artist, and we're like, here, draw this character however you want, you know. It's like, because there is a slight difference to them. They don't look quite finished yet, but it's actually a pretty cool little show of the artwork, introducing us to the crazy characters that we are about to meet. But then we get dropped into, you know, Alice basically having a school lesson with her sister. And she is, like every child at that age, not paying attention. You know, just droning on and, you know, just bored with what's going on and
fiddling with the daisy chain.
Yeah. And at this point, she's like, her sister's like, you should pay attention, that kind of thing. And she's like, well, in my world, we would do. And, it's at this point that she starts telling her cat, Dinah, about the rules of her world. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh, so what Alice really wants is opposite day at school. You ever do that at school? I'm like, that's what she wants. She wants everybody. She wants all of her friends to show up wearing their pants backwards and their shirts backwards, and to say little funny things, but it really doesn't have any bearing on the way things are going to work, because any other form of the world that Alice is describing would be a nightmare.
And she finds out how frustrating it is when the rules aren't the way they are. Like, this is why things work as they do.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is funny is that she spends like the first 5 minutes of the movie saying how much she just wishes that everything was nonsense and crazy, and then she goes into that world, and from moment one is like, why are you guys acting this way? I'm like, Alice, you designed this fucker. This is all on you.
You wouldn't say meow. You'd say, yes, Miss Alice.
Yes.
Oh, but you would. You'd be just like people, Dinah. It's like, everything that it is, it wouldn't be. Yeah. And what it wouldn't be, it would. And then how bad that is.
Yeah, she brainstorms this horrible nightmare society. And I mean, I will say, yes, obviously this is the book, but like, I would have almost liked her to have marveled in it for at least like 5 minutes before she immediately is just done with it, because she at no point seems to enjoy this world that she's basically thought up.
I think she enjoys the falling through the rabbit hole bit, and also I like that start. It's like we get the In a World of Our Own, which I love that song. It's a beautiful little song, short and sweet. And then suddenly it's just like, it's a rabbit, I'm off. Like, there's no motivation, no nothing's just, I'm in it.
I think that's what it is that her driving force, once she sees the rabbit, is find the rabbit. So all of the other like fun, nonsensical stuff she is missing because she is too focused on this one object. I mean, what I think is so funny is that when you look at it, this whole business starts because Alice is a nosy child. She's
curious and curious.
Yes, she just cannot get over the fact that she doesn't know what the fuck this rabbit is doing and why he is wearing a waistcoat and pocket. Yes, exactly. I mean,
what do you have to do?
Yes.
What are you so busy about?
Yes. It's like, Alice, are you just against this poor working class guy?
Let him do his thing.
Yes, let him do his job. I gotta say, I was gonna bring this up later, but I'm gonna bring it up now because it's kind of something that comes back. So there is a point later on where she actually goes to the rabbit's house, and at this point, what I love is the entire time he has seen her and said hello, goodbye, all this kind of stuff, but the moment that he sees her at his house, he instantly thinks that she's his housekeeper, Marianne.
Who is Marianne? That is my biggest thing. Who is Marianne?
Apparently, she at least bears some resemblance to Alice. Either that or the rabbit is completely face blind. Because
I think that's what it is. Every human looks the same to you.
But see, there are no other really, well, no, I guess the king and queen. But I was like, there are very few other like humans in this world. Like even the ones that there are, like, I mean, I guess you could argue that Tweedledee and Tweedledum and the Mad Hatter are like humans of a sort, but they're so, it's like the difference between Snow White and the dwarves. You know, you know, one is very realistic and the other is so caricaturized that they might as well be, figments of fantasy.
Yeah, everyone's living in that halfway between animal, anthropomorphic, and then characterization. Like it sits in that middle ground right there.
Yeah. But what I thought was crazy is that, you know, she can't convince him that she's not Marianne, and he tells her to go get his gloves. At this point, she goes up and she's like, get the rabbit's gloves. Next thing you know, I'll be taking orders from Dinah. And I'm like, Alice, what the hell British imperialism bullshit?
There's a hierarchy.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, are you so classist focused that you can't tell that this is a hardworking rabbit? He speaks well, he dresses well. Let the man. I mean, it's like she just automatically assumes that this creature has to be inferior to her and gets insulted that he's ordering her around. And I'm like, Alice, you got to get out of that mindset.
Well, what I really related to with Alice in that scene in particular is that, so yep, she goes up and she's on the job, so to speak. She's doing the job.
Right.
She starts eating shit. She just starts going through his stuff.
Yes.
I'll eat this. I'll eat that.
Well,
like,
yeah,
yes,
it's like, okay, she opens the thing and she's like, ooh. And I'm sorry. First of all, with her experience already of eating things in this world, you would think that she would figure out, don't do that. But also, like you said, she's just stealing people's shit. It's like, what is this thing with Disney female characters? They just automatically think that everybody's shit is my shit. It's like,
yeah, pretty much. It's there. I'll take it. It's
yes, yes. And then on top of that, all of these things say, eat me. And I'm just like, yeah. I'm sorry. If food starts talking to me, even in written, I'm going to say, no, I will not eat you today.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny. Yeah. In that first scene with her, and she finds the drink me bottle on the table. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I better check if it's marked poison because it's going to disagree with one sooner or later. And like, so she gives herself the advice. And this is the thing with the Alice character in general. She gives herself very good advice, though she very seldom follows it.
Right.
So as we've said, like, why hasn't she picked up on the eating and drinking thing yet? When it's like that first thing she told herself, she just keeps doing it.
Well, and also, okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to go back to that. But that whole, like, yes, the core of it is solid advice. Something might be poison. Maybe I shouldn't drink it. She still does. But the way she gets there is complete nonsense. It's like, okay, you say this is very good advice. And the heart of it is, but the way you kind of pattered around it was absolute bullshit. I'm just like...
It's very a child's point of view of trying to make sense of the world.
It's also... It is also very much that child thing of, I'm very smart. Aren't I smart?
Look at me.
Yes, exactly. It's that pat me on the back for how good I am. And it's like, yeah, a lot of what you said was just bullshit though.
Very true.
But yeah, so yeah, going back a little bit. She chases the rabbit, she goes down the hole, and this is where we encounter the doorknob and the keyhole, which I believe, and I have been told before, that this is actually one of the very few original characters.
I think it's the only added character.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I knew it was one of few, if not the only. But yeah, I will say, watching it this time, I don't think I've ever noticed. What really impressed me about the animation on the doorknob is that if you pay attention, now, yes, there are moments where it gets a little bit more flexible, but if you pay attention to the doorknob's mouth, it is almost always in the shape of a keyhole, which is brilliant. Like because it gets full range of motion, but it always, that bottom lip is always kind of in that squarish shape. And at times it catches and you can see it looks just like a keyhole hole, even when he's talking, which is a brilliant touch, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where the passion of Disney and overseeing this one really does come through, like all those little attention to details, because they've wanted to do it for so long. And when you have the older process, you're hand inking and drawing things, like you can make those sorts of things. If you've got more time to craft the film, you get those little touches.
Right. But yeah, it's at this point that she does, and they do this bit even in the book, but I like that we're kind of getting the narration from the doorknob here, in that, you know, it's oh, you're too big. Oh, you're the right size, but you forgot the key.
Yeah,
unlocked. You know, all this kind of stuff. And you know, then she gets huge and she starts crying. And I gotta say, even for a giant child, that is a lot of tears. That is
scary.
Yes. And she cries enough that basically she fills the equivalent of a closet in, you know, at least an inch of, and I'm just like, that child's tear ducts are working on overtime. I'm just like,
have red eyes after.
Yeah, I'm just like, afterwards, her eyes have got to be dry as fuck, man. In order, like, to just the amount of fluid that would take, you would feel like she'd be dehydrated later, you know. But she's fine.
Well, it has one of my favorite lines in any Disney film. I wish I hadn't cried so much.
Yeah. Now I have to ask you, because what I find so interesting about this is kind of playing with the idea of reality here. So, I mean, I will say I often forget. And when I get to the end, honestly, I'm always disappointed when at the end of the story, they reveal that she was sleeping the whole time. I just think that's bullshit, personally. I don't know if that's how it ends in the book or what it is.
I'm trying to remember. I think it's similar. I think it's all daydreams.
Yeah, I think it's her sister wakes her up in the book or something like that. But either way, I'm just like, I kind of like to ignore that part and just kind of think, okay, is Wonderland like an actual place that she stumbled into, or is it Alice breaking from reality? You know, is it kind of her mental breakdown? But I also have the question, is the world in the keyhole the same as the one behind the door?
Is the world in the keyhole the one?
Because she never opens the door
to get
in. Yeah, she goes through the keyhole. That's how she gets into the world. And that's what we see through the keyhole. But I always wonder is if she had gotten the key and opened the door, would it have been the same world? I mean, yes, this is mind-breaking stuff.
Is this like a mirror dimension sort of question you're asking me?
Like I'm wondering, like, is it the same world? I mean, yes, obviously all of this is nonsense, but conventional wisdom would tell you, well, yeah, sure. But this is Wonderland. So who's to say that it would be the same nonsense world on the other side? Maybe it's a different nonsense world.
Maybe it's a less scary nonsense world.
Or maybe it's a more scary nonsense world.
True. That's true. Really cool question. I'll have to watch it with a different point of view now. And I'm also getting my 1999 version mixed up, because I think in that one she does get the key and opens the door to the garden.
And I think she does somehow in the book. I mean, I haven't read the book. I've read the Wikipedia pages. But you know, from what I could gather, I felt like it wasn't the same struggle. But I
do like that it might be like a mirror dimension, Inception, world within a world type within thing. A world. That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so she does get into the world, and we meet the very first character inside Wonderland is who, Kelly?
The dodo?
Yes. I mean,
yeah, the caucus rice.
Yes. We also meet birds that he's riding on top, but they don't really have names. And
is it singing the sailor's hornpipe? Is it that one that's singing like sea shanties and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's singing the sea shanties. And my first thought after seeing the things that, because the thing is, in all three scenes that we see the dodo in, the dodo is like the world's best yet dumbest cult leader. Like,
yes.
he is somehow
like a mayor, but that makes much more sense.
Yeah, like he's somehow so charismatic and so convincing that he can get these characters to do the dumbest shit, and they don't even question it. Even the rabbit, in burning down his own house at different points, he gets him on board with it. And I'm just like, it's so funny how, like, charismatic and like it's funny and interesting, but it's also kind of like, that's a little close to reality. Like, you see people that you're just like, how the hell do people listen to anything this person says? Because they are dumb as a pile of bricks. And yet you see tons of people following them. It makes no sense.
In the world, it seems like they've given him a fancy hat and a fancy pipe. So, and he's singing all these sea shanties. So he might be like captain of a ship, an admiral, something like that.
Yeah,
so I mean, I
definitely got he's a very British, imperial British character.
Yes.
And definitely has those vibes to him, but also, like I said, like scarily charismatic.
Yeah.
And really should not have the influence that he does.
No, like when Bill the Lizard's walking past and he just like scoops him up with the arm and you're going up this chimney and you're going to fight the monster. Like, here you go. Good on you, Bill. Oh.
Yeah. Which Bill the Lizard, we know, is also in one other Disney animated film. I mean, I don't think they ever call him Bill, but he's the exact same character. He looks exactly the same. Yeah, in the Great Mouse Detective.
Great Mouse Detective.
Yeah. Which honestly, it's rather random for him to show up there because he's in basically an entire gang of mice.
Yes.
Yeah. It's him and the bat are the only two non-rodents in this,
in the clique.
In this situation. Yeah.
Maybe he shot up from the chimney, passed through into the real world.
That was my thought. I'm like, is that how he got into real life London?
Let's start spreading that conspiracy theory.
Absolutely. Yes, because he does get shot into the sky and seemingly just disappears, and everybody's just like, bye Bill.
There goes Bill.
All right. And then he falls in with criminals. Poor Bill.
Can't catch a break.
But yeah, so I've got to say, it kept striking me because Alice keeps getting like distracted or pulled in this direction or that direction, but she still keeps stumbling across the rabbit. And I'm just like, what the hell kind of detours is this rabbit taking? When he is obviously incessant, that he has somewhere that he is late for, that he needs to get to. How does he keep ending up on this winding path right back in front of Alice, even though she keeps being pulled back? It's like, I want to know what's happening to the rabbit.
It feels like the snake eating its tail almost in one sense, because it's like Alice is chasing the rabbit, but the rabbit always just happens to come up right behind Alice. And it is that, it's like, where is he coming from? He'll just happen to appear. Like, she goes to the tea party and he's there.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Well, like you said, he comes in after she does. But he, instead of her who comes in just to check out the noise, comes in like that's his way to wherever he's going. And it's like, dude, why are you at a tea party? What?
Go.
You say you're late. Go.
Is it the watch? Is it the 2 days slow watch and he's behind? Is that
see, honestly, no. I always just thought the 2 days slow thing was just a nonsensical gag because, you know, it's not, I don't think, you know, even those old, I don't think those old pocket watches had chronometers on them. You know, it doesn't say what day it is. It's the exact same time. They're just, you know, they're making the joke of it's 2 days slow, but it could still be on time. That's where the joke is there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I imagine that he must be having a similar issue of that Alice is, that people keep taking him off of his path or something is going on. So I'm almost interested to see, you know, Disney keeps doing shorts. Let's see a short of the rabbits commute to work. Yeah. What does his day look like? Just trying to get to you know, his homicidal boss.
Because he makes it in the end. So she goes through the tree. But how did he get there? Like, what's the correct path to the Queen of Hearts?
Who knows?
And just on time.
Well, and yeah, I was about to say he couldn't have been too late. Otherwise, I don't think he'd still be there, because we see how the Queen takes insults. We also, though, at that point, understand why he was so panicked about being late.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but so yeah, I will say, oh that's right. Oh, Teddy, stop. You're okay. He thinks now is the time to play. Okay, so yeah, so the next place that Alice ends up is she basically runs into Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Yes. And I found it interesting. Now, I haven't read Through the Looking Glass, so I don't know how they come off in the book. In the film, they're one of my two favorite segments. Because I just love the walrus and the carpenter bit so much.
Yeah.
Like, so that stuff has just stuck with me. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I found it funny later on. I can't remember. It might be from like Kingdom Hearts. I'm bringing like otherworld lore into it from the Wikipedia or whatever. Tweedledee and Tweedledum and the Cheshire Cat labeled as antagonists. Do you think that?
I mean, here's the thing is that they are distractions on this journey. I definitely don't see Tweedledee or Tweedledum as antagonists, because they literally are just trying to tell stories. They are not doing anything malicious. And honestly, I see the Cheshire Cat more than anything as a chaos agent. I literally don't think he gives a crap what happens to Alice or anyone. He just wants to see what would happen if he did this.
Yeah, he doesn't have stakes in anything.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that he would be equally as likely to help Alice as hurt Alice, and it would mean just as much to him. I don't think you could really call him an antagonist. A chaos agent, absolutely. But he's not actively working against her. He's honestly just actively working against any sort of order, which is kind of crazy in a world that is already has as little order as it does. Exactly. I mean, I would think if there is an antagonist at all, it would be the Queen of Hearts.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum, once I read that and then I watched that scene again, I think it's because they've got like some sly glances and they're like sucking Alice into their stories. But I think antagonist is way too far. They're just there to like have fun and play around, and they're just there. They're just there.
Yeah. I think that they are thrilled to have an audience, is what that is. Yes. Are they rather insistent that she not leave? Yeah, but that's not I don't think that is anything intentional. I don't really think anything in this world has intent. Yes. I think they're all just kind of doing their own shit. And, Alice just happens to be along for the ride. But yeah, I think that they just, out of Alice, they just want an audience. I don't see any sort of malevolence from that at all. I think they just want her attention. But yeah. I mean, I have always enjoyed just kind of the nonsensical nature of the whole Tweedledee, Tweedledum storyline. I mean, obviously they're doing some things back and forth, but the main crux of it is the story of the walrus and the carpenter. And it starts off with one of my favorite sight gags of, they were walking in the sunlight, the sun was shining bright. This was odd because it was the middle of the night. One's the moon and one's the sun right next to each other. It's great. I love that. And the walrus and the carpenter literally walk from night into day. Very well designed. Yeah, it's great. And then, I just have always loved just some of the words and the language.
Phrases. Yes.
The phrases. I may have talked to you about this before. I can't remember, but I have always loved the phrase cabbages and canes. I don't know what it is. It's just, I do think that there's actually a little bit of commentary there, because you could see it as, high class, low class, kind of, to get, because kind of the whole thing about the walrus and the carpenter is there are, contradictions, there are juxtapositions, complete opposite things right next to each other. You've got, just the characters themselves. You've got a carpenter, one of the only human characters in the story, and then a walrus, not only a talking animal, but a talking sea creature that is walking fine on dry land, So, you've got these weird juxtapositions throughout that whole kind of segment. So I think that there is a lot you could actually read into and get out of that story if you really wanted to. But there are also just some entertaining things going on. I will say, I think I noticed for the first time that this carpenter has like super carpenter skills. When he builds shack, and like out of literally just flotsam and jetsam he finds around the beach, and like builds that and like on the outside it kind of looks messed up, but inside it kind of looks like a cozy little shack.
Nice little restaurant.
It's got like a little back room and everything.
A galley for all these sauces and stuff.
It's like, and you literally built that in less than a minute. That's insane. And
they've got like full-blown menus and silver platters and stuff. Like they've decked it out.
the whole thing. It's just absolutely crazy. But yeah, I just, I really enjoy that segment. And then, she gets out of that story. They start going into Old Father William, and they're not paying attention. So she, just leaves. And that is that when she, that's when we go to the rabbit's house.
Marianne. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I will say one thing I haven't said about that segment yet is that I love that all of the rabbit's furniture has rabbit ears on it.
Yeah, and like the house with the hair and
and it's like there's no real reason for that. It's like it doesn't serve a function, but like the grandfather clock has rabbit ears, the chair has rabbit ears, and it's like he doesn't really need an ear rest. Like what in the world is
it's just branding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Carrots in the garden.
Yeah. I will say that whole scene does bring to mind the question, does all the food in this world make you either grow or shrink? And if so, I'm wondering, does it only affect Alice, or is everybody else in this world growing and shrinking? Because I don't think, well, no, we do see the Mad Hatter and the March
the tea party. That's what I was going to say.
Which I wonder if that's why they never let her drink tea, because it might make her grow or shrink.
No, she just gets a face full of sugar.
Yeah, she never actually gets to drink tea in that scene. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we don't really see any other characters eating or drinking anything.
No, because they've got all the condiments. They've got butter, they've got jam, they've got mustard, but they've got no bread on the table. I think that maybe there's some cake. They've got birthday cake, but no one eats it. It explodes.
Yeah. So. I mean, and the Mad Hatter does eat a plate, but I don't think that really counts.
No, I don't know how much calories are in that.
But yeah, I mean, I would. Perhaps it really is only Alice because she's not from the world. Yeah. But yeah, because otherwise that would just be chaos. It's like, okay, everybody stay the same size today. Nobody eat anything.
Very sure.
Yeah. Not very healthy. Not very healthy. But yeah, so she ends up out of that whole thing,
the house, because she shrinks down.
Yeah,
I do like the bit when she eats the carrot from the white rabbit, and he's got his arm there.
It's like, why is he so freaking protective over his vegetables that he's literally willing to like risk his life to protect a carrot?
Yeah, when she's already destroyed like half his house, it's like, mate, let the carrots go.
Yes,
that's the least of the
let it
right
go. But yeah, that's when she stumbles into the flower garden. We get the Golden Afternoon song.
Oh, I love this scene.
I've got to say though, I'm a little confused because at the end of the scene, they seem to think that she's got to be some sort of plant, but there are other things in the song, in the scene, that are not plants. The caterpillar and the dog and caterpillar, you know, and various other things. Even, I mean, the bread and butterflies, they're not any sort of plant. You know,
I think because she's got the stem and the dress, so they're like, she must be a flower. She's there, but I get what you mean. There's other there's creatures. There's not just plants. She could be other organic matter.
Right. Yeah, and they're just like, well, if she's not a flower, she has to be a weed. And I'm like, why are we so black and white? Why does she have to be one thing or the other? Can't she just be what she is? Guys, come on.
This is one of the reasons I like
Alice for who she is.
Exactly.
An imperious British young girl.
Except her. She's one of you. But that's why I like this scene. It gives me very Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice vibes, where the flowers are so bitchy to your face, but say it in like an almost complimentary way. Like, and they're just this girl gang almost, like they're just the mean girls, and they're feeding off each other. But I didn't pick up on that as a kid. It's like, flowers pretty, they must be nice, but oh no, especially like what's the purple one? Like,
I was about to say that I believe she's a violet, right?
There's the shrinking violets.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Whatever she is though, I love her design because
the puffed out chest.
Yes, she looks like
a matriarch,
you know, a matriarchal British woman. You know, you just look at her and you know exactly the tone that they are trying to reach with this character. Very well done.
True. But I love all the different flower designs. Each flower has personalities, and the song's really pretty. And I do like that. And it does have that turn. They do turn quite quickly. So you've got a bit of levels in the scene, which I do like. And then you really feeling Alice start to get fed up with what is going on here. Why is everyone being so mean to her?
Yeah, because they really do kind of just, you know, completely reject her after they assume she must be a weed. The
Nick Harry moment with the water.
Yeah. Oh, geez. And then following that, we get the caterpillar, which that character to me, first of all, the fact that they did not change that character at all from the book, they literally have a hookah smoking caterpillar in a Disney film. A caterpillar who is sitting on a mushroom, smoking a hookah and singing vowels. I'm like, we're just straight up admitting we were doing drugs while coming up with this shit. Like, there's no hiding this metaphor. It's all over the place, the imagery. But the fact that you've got this character that is kind of, like I said, kind of got all of the drug references, yet comes off like a self-absorbed, stuffy professor, is just so it's once again, it's that juxtaposition of ideas. Because you've got this character that you would assume might be the most laid back of all of them,
or just incoherent. But he is the one really pushing Alice, because how do you take this character? Because as a kid, I'm not a fan, because it's so straight, and I don't always respond to people that are very down the line. And that's what he is, because she's like, so you see, I do not see, like, very stern, as you said, professorly character. But now as an adult, when you meet more people, I'm like, oh yeah, I've learned how to interact with those kinds.
Right. And I think that I do enjoy the character. I think partially because it's kind of making fun of those self-serious type of people, because you've got this character that speaks as if he is, all important and everything, where his number one, his appearance would make him look like the exact opposite. And also, he can't control his own freaking limbs. It's like, how serious can you actually take him, when he is literally, messing up his own shit constantly, So I do kind of appreciate the character for, on that level, kind of being a caricature of those types of people, and kind of, poking fun at them a little bit.
Yeah. It's very much like a but why character. Like, why? But why?
Yeah.
But why? And having that, trying to poke holes in any bit of logic while trying to have the upper hand. It's very much that.
Why? Who are you?
You? Who are you? Like, yes. Yeah, very much.
But yeah, great stuff. And at the end of that scene, we finally get kind of, he gives Alice kind of the key to the food. One side will make you grow larger, the other will make you grow shorter. And of course, she still has not learned moderation, because every single one of these things she's just bitten right down into. Honestly, I'm surprised she didn't get bigger, because the candy that she ate from the rabbit's house, she either ate the whole thing or she ate like half of it. Like, it was a large portion. Yeah. And once again, she takes like, a smaller, but still a bite, And I will say, the way that this scene was described in what I was reading about the book, it made it sound like only her head and her neck grew, which made the whole serpent thing make much more sense.
This scene, I wish they would cut from the film.
Because it really makes no sense that this bird is calling her a serpent, because she in no way has any sort of features that look like a serpent. Like,
no,
it makes no sense.
The only thing is they're coming for the eggs, but that bird is just so shrill. There's no layers in that character. So I really am like, this I can skip forward like 30 seconds to a minute and be fine.
I will say, and I think this is kind of a criticism that you could throw at the Disney canon for the longest time. They have always been very hesitant to allow their cartoons to be cartoonish. So you won't see squash and stretch types of things that you would see in things like Looney Tunes, or even some of the earlier the earlier Disney shorts and things like that. You're not going to see a lot of that. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that they did not do the head neck thing, because it looks like a cartoon. They didn't
put gags in.
Right. And their whole thing was basically that they made animated feature films. They didn't want to make feature film length animated shorts. Yes. And I think that they saw that as beneath them. And while I get kind of that in breaking out and establishing yourselves, I think that in other places, them never bringing that back in has hurt them, especially in things like this where they're not,
where the source material could call for it. Yes.
Exactly, where the source material calls for it, and instead of either doing that or taking the scene out, they don't do it justice instead.
Yeah, true. We see a little bit of it with the tea party scene, which I think we're getting to somewhat soon.
Right.
But definitely with like character design for your lead, like they're more protective of it, it seems.
Right. But she does, stow away the little food bits.
She learns to just lick the bit of the mushroom.
Well, yeah, I mean, she finally figures that out. But what I found was interesting is that she deliberately puts them in two separate pockets.
Yep.
But then at the end, when she is faced with the queen, she jams both of them in her mouth. I'm like, first of all, I thought you separated those things on purpose. Get that shit straight. What the hell? And then, like, why would you eat both of them fully? They've got to counteract each other.
That's just some like last ditch effort.
Yeah.
Throw everything at the bus fight.
It literally, it reeks of panic is what it is. It 100% does. So yeah, I'm like, why would you put them in separate pockets if you're just going to jam both of them in your mouth?
She had a plan. It just couldn't see it through.
I got to harken back to, or forward, I guess, to Meet the Robinsons. I don't think this plan was well thought through. I really just don't. Maybe she just got really hungry all of a sudden. Just like, I'm big now. Cool.
She's really lucky she didn't like explode or implode or anything like that. Could have had really bad effects.
I mean, honestly, it's a good thing that the bigger one took effect first, because I'm afraid that otherwise she would have like shrunk into non-existence.
Yeah, very much. Got some Ant-Man situation going on.
Yeah. I mean, as much of that thing as she ate, my goodness. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, after that, it is the Mad Tea Party, which this scene, this easily is my favorite scene in the film, because it is so delightfully nonsensical. Like, it is just fun from the moment that they're introduced. Honestly, how Alice is not having the time of her life, I don't understand. It's like, Alice, you really need to live in the moment, because this shit is gold. Like, you are really wasting because literally the things that she was asking for with Dinah, this is the scene she has been waiting for. This is her nonsense, her fun nonsense moment. And she misses every single moment of it. And I'm just like, Alice, what are you doing?
Well, it starts from the lead up to that scene. It's when she finds the Cheshire Cat there. But I don't want to go amongst the mad people. Like, girl, what are you doing here? Yeah. What did you ask for?
I don't think you understand what you were asking.
Yes. So she should know going in, like, a little bit what to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this scene so much. This is one of my favorite scenes in any movie. I'll watch this on YouTube just for shits and giggles. The amount of quotes I pull from this into my real life is amazing. And I still get so much joy out of all the little moments that they've been able to parcel through, and all the different ways they use the tea and the teapots and things like that. It is so genius when he cracks the pot.
Yes, the sight gags in this are brilliant. The quips and things like that are great. Yeah. I love the bit when the rabbit comes in and they do the 2 days slow thing, and basically they horrendously destroy this butter.
Oh yes, bit of butter.
Yes. And putting all this stuff in it. Yes, putting all this stuff in the pocket watch, and then he's just mustard.
Silly.
Let's not be silly now. Lemon, that's
a different story.
Yes. It's great. It's brilliant. And it's like there's no reason why any of these things should be better or worse than the other. It's nonsense. It is pure, utter, delightful nonsense. And I love it.
It starts when she walks in and sits down. It's no room. It's like, oh, but I did enjoy your singing. You enjoyed our singing? What a delightful child. We never get compliments. Like, all it takes is that one little line, and it's like that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's how extreme they are.
Yeah. And I love it's like they know when she's about to take a drink, because they immediately move down. Yes.
But half a cup if you don't mind, when he cuts it.
Oh, I love that sight gag. It's great.
So good. And tea. Oh yes, I'm very fond of tea. We should just say, like, well, I can't have more. I haven't had any. And it has my favorite line.
You can always have more of something. You mean you very well couldn't have less. You can always have more of something you haven't had. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, but I didn't think. That's the thing. If you don't think, you shouldn't talk. That's one of my all-time favorite Disney lines. And great. Like, we get a lot of love for the Mad Hatter. But I want more love for the March Hare.
The March Hare,
what Jerry Colonna does with that voice.
Yes.
That 1940s radio announcer voice that he brings to the March Hare. I love it.
Well, and also I think that Jerry Colonna is overlooked because, and I've done it. I think a lot of people assume that that's Groucho Marx because he sounds very Groucho Marx.
Yes, very.
And honestly, I think for the longest time, I actually thought it was Groucho Marx until I, started looking this stuff up. And yeah, it's, crazy, because it's got kind of that Marx Brothers nonsensicalness in it. I will say, I think the March Hare is a little more, makes himself a little bit more, a gag than Groucho Marx ever did. Groucho Marx was more, the smart one, never really made a gag out of himself. Really, all of his humor was about, messing with others, which there's a fair bit of that, but there's also, he is insane.
You wouldn't see him like with the hammer and things like that, like with the terrorists, like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
it's a little too chaotic for him. Yeah,
I can see the Groucho Marx in like the delivery. Like, I love the. I was sitting on the riverside with Dinah. Very interesting.
Who's Dinah?
I was sitting with who. I do. I'm so sorry. I'm just doing the whole scene. But
no, it's great. It's great.
These are the moments that I've taken into like my life that I'll just do these bits, even in my house to myself. Be like, open the fridge and be like, mustard. Like,
now let's not be silly.
All the little inflections and the way they play off each other. And then, of course, the birthday song. Like, I love my birthday. It's coming up soon. So I'm like, birthday day. When I first saw this premise, I'm like, every day would be like your birthday. But it is that thing of then it wouldn't be special.
Right.
You know,
right.
So I do like that bit of nonsense. But it would be fun at first and not enjoyable in the long run, which seems to be the thesis statement of the film.
Sure. So I mean, like I said, the best scene in the film, we could probably spend the entire rest of the podcast breaking it down. But we do eventually move on from the unbirthday party.
It's the stupidest tea party I've ever been to. Move it along.
There's a bit in this that I don't know. Every time I hear it, it makes me laugh because have you seen any of those films that they've been putting out recently? It's like they're like the biopics of like famous authors, and like all throughout them they're dropping their book titles and things like that, like they're being cute. Like
what, like Tolkien or
like the Tolkien thing, and there's all a bunch of like cute things. It's like, ooh, this is how he got that inspiration, and it's all like
they said the title, wink, wink, like that.
It's all that very wink, wink stuff, and it's honestly, when it's done like that, it's really insufferable. But there is a bit here that felt kind of like that, where after she leaves the birthday party and she's like walking through the forest, Alice says the line, I shall write a book about this place if I ever get out of it. And honestly, a part of me like went into like narration mode. It was then we all realized that Alice's real name was Lewis Carroll. I'm just like, it's like, this is actually an origin story,
But that ties into like what you're saying about like how is it just her breaking it down? Like, is this going to be what she writes about? Because this is her new other world sort of thing. Right. I don't mind that it's a dream, because the way that it moves between segments does feel like you're dreaming, where it's like suddenly I'm in this next scene and suddenly like there's this thing from the one before. But I do like to think that it could be.
I just kind of like messing with the reality. And when you do say, oh, it was a dream, it takes a little bit of the fun out of that.
Yeah. But if it's, I'm going to write a book, a little bit different.
Yeah. But yeah, so I will say I like in this scene that we get, a bunch of nonsense creatures. We get the drum and the cymbals frogs, the birds that one's a mirror and one's the spyglass, or the glasses.
These freak me out. Even now, like, as a kid, I was like, "Oh, it's very Toy Story when Sid makes his toys together." That's what it reminds me of a bit. Yeah, I like the birds with the cage as the body. It's got the birds.
Yeah, the bird cage bird. Yeah. The accordion owl. These kind of like in a darker story, you might see stitching with these characters, like they were created like experiments, but and then it's at this point I think she has a little bit of a breakdown, and she has like the typical like Disney princess scene where she starts like having a song, and all of the animals, of course in this they're all nonsense animals, come to like comfort her,
console her, start crying.
But Alice in no circle is considered a Disney princess, I don't believe. Definitely not an official one. And I mean, even if you stretch the definition, I think it'd be really hard to define her as a princess in this story. But she definitely gets that Disney princess treatment where, you know, all Disney princesses can converse with woodland creatures. Of course, in Alice's case, she gets all freaks. So maybe that's the consolation of not being a princess. You get weird animals.
Yeah. But yeah, very much the trope of I'm going to sit down and cry about my problems now, and they will be solved. They will be solved after I have this cry.
Yes. And then we get, I think, the second scene with the Cheshire Cat, which I think is the most fun, because this is really where you kind of start to get the chaotic nature of the Cheshire Cat, that he's not there to help or hurt her. He's really just there because he's like, you know what? I think it'd be really interesting if this girl met the queen. That would be kind of cool, right? Let's see what happens. You know, he just likes to stir shit up and watch it go.
I love that they introduced him singing the Jabberwocky bit, because I'm really glad they cut that as well, that they didn't have it all.
It really wouldn't work in the Disney version of the story, but to have it kind of referenced, alluded to a little bit here is interesting. And I gotta say, I love Sterling Holloway as the Cheshire Cat. I mean, I didn't mention it before. Edwin, obviously, as the Mad Hatter, is brilliant. I think more people know that voice associated with the Mad Hatter than they do Edwin.
Yes, very true.
But Sterling Holloway is just, his name's not as well known now, but everybody knows his characters. And what I love is that so many, because he was contributing to Disney. He was almost the voice of Sleepy. Like, that's how
oh, wow.
I think eventually, I think Pinto Colvig also did. I'd have to look it up, because I know he does Grumpy, and I think Sleepy's.
It's either Sleepy or Sneezy. I think it is Sleepy though.
But you know, like I said, Sterling Holloway was almost the voice of Sleepy. And then, you know, his first appearance, I believe, is in Dumbo. At least as a featured character. Yeah. You know, I'd have to see if maybe he did like a bit voice in like maybe Pinocchio or something earlier.
I don't think.
But yeah, at least featured voices, it was the Stork, and you know, was working with them. I believe he died in the early 80s.
Oh.
Let's see.
Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, 77.
Oh, no. He died in the 90s. He died in 92. Wow. But I think he retired.
Yeah. I think he was not well for a while.
Yeah. Because I knew that the first time, because I knew he was still alive when they did the first Pooh story without him, because Hal Smith did the voice of Winnie the Pooh. Hal Smith, also famously the voice of Owl, did both characters in that short. It's a lesser known one, but it's one of my favorites because it's the one where they play Pooh sticks.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, I think it's Eeyore's birthday. I think that's kind of the crux of the story of that one, but it's like I said, it's lesser known because it's not in any of it's not in many adventures of Winnie the Pooh
ones. Yeah,
and it's also obviously, you know, it came out in like the early 80s, so it wasn't going to make the cut for Winnie the Pooh that came out in 2011. Yeah. I do like that they didn't revoice it, but I do wish that they would include that in, you know, some sort of collection or something, because not as many people see that one. But like I said, Sterling Holloway, contributed. And what I love is that so many of his characters are so different.
Very much.
Yes. You've got Winnie the Pooh, which is the quintessential lovable character. And then you've got the Cheshire Cat, who is, the prototype chaos agent. Then you've got Caw, who I've kind of always seen as a little bit of a trickster, because if you watch the Jungle Book, he is both helpful to Mowgli and at the same time wants to eat him. It's this weird kind of, it's very self-serving, but he actually does a lot to help Mowgli. It's just, he also remembers that he might be delicious to eat.
And the Shere Khan is scary.
But he does. He protects him from Shere Khan. Yeah. So, I mean, I love, the fact that his characters are so diverse, but he never really did a whole lot to change his voice, but I don't really think that he needed to, because his characters were so different. You can put Winnie the Pooh next to Caw, next to the Cheshire Cat, and not be confused as to who is who, because they are just such different characters.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think the voice has a way of drawing out the personality of the character for whoever he adapts it to. So like Roquefort from the Aristocats is very helpful and very sweet.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the Cheshire Cat, who's just delighting in all the madness and the chaos and is toying with her. Like, yeah. You might find that I'm not all there myself, like the way he says it. And that's the exact same tone and cadence that he uses for Winnie the Pooh, because Pooh's a very slow talking, soft character. So it's just in the inflection and what he's trying to draw out from the character.
Yeah.
That makes it suit. So I love Sterling Holloway, and I love this performance as the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah. It's really, really awesome. But yeah, he leads her to the queen. She of course runs into the cards who are painting the roses red. And I gotta say about this, for characters who are trying to hide a mistake, they are the sloppiest painters I have ever seen.
Sloppy is the word I was just about to use.
There is no chill in their game. There is no way in hell they are getting away with this. They are just absolutely like slapdash in their attempts. No wonder they're found out. What, and then we get, the whole royal procession comes in, and what I love is she finally finds out where the rabbit was going, and then she doesn't give a shit. When she finally
interesting things
she literally, I mean, yes, she did have the scene. She already had a scene at this point before this where she basically gave up. She like, I don't give a shit. All of this makes no sense. I want to go home. Yeah. But when she finally, she's not even like, oh, Mr. Rabbit, this is where you were going. She does not give a shit.
Doesn't address him, does she?
No.
Does she? No.
No. We don't hear a thing about the rabbit after that. She just completely gave up on that. And so then we are, of course, introduced to the Queen of Hearts, who is, played by Verna Felton. Verna Felton, provided many, 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 many voices in many Disney films. She actually, in the 50s, provided a voice in every film except for one.
Peter Pan.
Yes. Yep. I'm sure you probably also knew that, but that was also a question in Movie Battles. So
yeah. But Verna Felton, like, I love this voice so much, because very similar to what we were talking about Sterling Holloway, not so much in that she doesn't change her voice. She changes her voice for every character. Like, I could not believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that you can recognize. There are some that are very different, but I think if you listen to like Flora and then you listen to the Queen of Hearts, you might realize, oh, that's the same person, but completely different characters.
I think Fairy Godmother and Flora, because you both got kind matriarchal fairy figures.
Sure.
You can tell that, but from Fairy Godmother to Queen of Hearts, I can't tell as much. Well, I can tell now that I'm older and I'm listening to it. Right, but as a child, no way. It's not like when you listen to the most egregious examples, Phil Harris's Baloo and Little John and Thomas O'Malley. Like, you pick up as a kid that is the same person.
Well, and then what I love is that they bookended his two characters, because he did 3 films in a row.
Bears?
Yes. His first and his last, they were both bears, and it's like, I'm sorry.
Come on.
Little John is basically just a brown version of Baloo.
So true. So true.
This exact same character.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely love Phil Harris.
It suits it.
Yeah.
It works, but it's not like he's trying to put on any different voice.
No.
Like Rose Byrne Felton, she's so soft as Fairy Godmother, and then so boisterous as the Queen of Hearts.
I mean, I will say a difference there is that they hired Phil Harris as a personality. He was not a voice actor. It was really one of the first bits of stunt casting that they did. I mean, obviously not anyone as big as what would eventually blow it open with Robin Williams, but he was a known personality, a known presence. So it really was kind of, but Verna Felton obviously was a working actor, a voice
stage trained, I'd say.
Exactly. But and of course, like I said, she plays the queen very interesting, brilliantly. And what I find very interesting, and honestly, I'd be interested in kind of looking back, because the representation of the king and queen are slightly different, at least from what I can tell, than they are in the book. In the book, I think that their difference in stature is not like the king in this is literally an afterthought. Nobody gives a crap about
comically to the side.
Nobody gives a crap about the king. He really is
and
just
the king.
A figurehead. Yes, exactly. And the queen really just kind of humors him when she takes the suggestions for things like a trial and things like that. He really has no power. And from what I could tell from the books, that was not the way the characters necessarily were set up. The queen might be a bigger figure, but I don't think it's as completely, yes, exactly. Completely disparate as it is in this. And I have to wonder, if this was some sort of pointed commentary, because obviously they are kind of making you could say they are making a statement with the way that the trial is run, that everything that's nonsense is important, and everything that is important, nobody wants to listen to. That's actually kind of a pointed statement that could be happening. And I did, because this is 1951, this is during the height of McCarthyism. I do have to wonder if maybe they were making, now it's not, at least as far as I can tell, not a blatant, this is definitely about McCarthyism, but I do kind of have to wonder if maybe they were, the animators were making some sort of statement about, nonsensical law and kind of the repercussions therein.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and I think it's from the book, sentence first, verdict after.
Yes.
Like that tells you a lot about the world and how that's a nonsense line that is scarily true.
Well, yeah, honestly, that's the thing that made me think of McCarthyism, because that's very much the way that it functioned it very much was, you are guilty until we give you until you give us a reason to let you off the hook.
Extremely true. I think the Queen and the King were much more equal because they had that plot point of it was the knave who stole the tarts. They've got all that in there. So I think it's a cool move to really push up that Queen Victoria essence that they're going for with the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
And really make her the prominent figurehead, and she's the full power control of it all. And
there really are, and I mean, like I said, this came out in 51, so by Elizabeth was coronated in 52,
55, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, I knew it wasn't yet, but you're right. There are a lot of Victorian vibes to this story. This feels very, I mean, it's very British, but it definitely feels like a Victorian Britain that we are, like I've said several times. Yes, partially joking, but also the imperial presence is real in this. You can definitely sense that type of mindset in this story. And like I said, I find that very interesting. It's got to be present in the book because I wouldn't feel like an American production in 1951 would necessarily be wanting to make that commentary.
No, they've done what they've called the annotated Alice, and someone's gone through and done like the bibliography and the notes and everything, and like, where's this reference from? What was Lewis Carroll writing about? So the Queen Victoria essence is very touched upon. Yeah,
and it's felt even in the film. Yeah,
I like that they brought that over. I do like how true to the nature of the Alice world that they played into, because we get a little bit of it with like Snow White being Germanic, but not a lot. You know what I mean? Or like Cinderella being French, I think, but not a lot. Whereas is that
I feel like Cinderella. Oh wait, no. Yeah, Charles Perrault.
Yeah.
So, I think the Cinderella actually has several origins. I think there are different. I think Charles Perrault is the one that kind of coalesced them into the version of the story that we know now. But I think there was like a Russian version that had very similar elements and some other things. But yeah, I think Charles Perrault is the one that kind of originated the version that we know.
Yeah, but I like that we're getting a lot of Alice and British and like really staying true to all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're getting down now towards the end of the film. Is there anything that we've missed, anything that we haven't discussed that you want to talk about before we move forward?
No, I think we've hit on like each scene we're hitting on is a chapter in the book. I had to flip through the book the other day, and like it really is those segments. So of course I can always do more Mad Tea Party quotes, but but I do like the croquet scene coming up. Do you play croquet? Like how she speaks and things like that. And what I like about the Queen of Hearts, why I find her a dynamic villain, she has these really big loud off the heads moments, and then she pulls back, like she'll switch on a dime.
It's those levels. Honestly, that's what makes her so menacing, because you never know, even when she is sweet, you never know when she's gonna flip. Like even some things that you would expect her to flip on, she doesn't. And then the things that maybe you wouldn't, and it's like, I don't understand.
Always is your ways, Your Majesty. Catzy, dear. Like it's all
Catzy when you say it saves time.
No, I like the Queen a lot, and I like the croquet scene, and it very much plays into like if it's not going your way, because we've all played games with people. If it's not going their way, they can't handle it.
No, she's a very bad sport, a very bad loser. I love how rigged the game is. And apparently how amazing Alice actually is at this game. Because you see all of the things that all of the cards have to like lay flat in order for her to not get a single point. It's like, geez.
Yeah.
And I do feel bad for that one card that like tries to get at the end of the line and just can't get there and gets beheaded because he can't be the 1 point that the queen. Yeah.
Up for the head by order of the king. It's like,
no, nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. You're like the Queen of England. Nobody cares. I mean, it very much is, that figurehead kind of, he really has no say. He really has no authority, but he's got the title. Some people might think he's important, but he's really not.
He's trying to exert power wherever he can.
Absolutely. All right. So now that we've kind of reached the end of the film, we're kind of wrapping up, getting towards the end here. I mean, I'm gonna give you the chance if you've got anything more that you could say about this, because we did a segment. If you don't have anything, I can just cut it out, but we did a segment in the old podcast because especially a lot of this older stuff might have some problematic, questionable elements. So we used to do this segment called Whoa Disney. Where we talked about anything that might be, a little offensive. And, obviously some of these are fun and funny. Some of them are actually serious. Like this is something that Disney needed to be thinking about. And, I have said, and, like I said, I was partially joking, but there is a very imperialist element in this. There is this kind of, and as nonsensical as I was being when I said it, this idea of classism, of just being automatically better than someone because of your innate birth, I guess, is absolute bullshit. So I couldn't let that go without saying it, because it is ridiculous that she would have that complaint. It's like, yes, he's ordering you around. He also talks and dresses better than you do, Alice. So what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, I think it's blatant as well, as we talked about with Dodo and Bill. It's like, why is Bill, just because he's a lizard and chimney sweep, why do you just get to boss him around and he has to be the one to go up? So there's like working class features there as well, all that sort of thing. Very much.
Well, I mean, that's very much that Victorian imperialism thing that we were talking about. That's built into, even in Wonderland, there is the higher class and there is the working class, and it's even in a nonsense. Honestly, it makes more sense in a nonsense world because it makes no sense.
Exactly. No reason for it, but
no. All right.
I think those are the big points.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't really see anything else that made me go, oh geez, seriously.
There's not so much that would make it have the disclaimer at the front of the film as we've seen nowadays.
No, this is one of the few that Disney doesn't have to. We're sorry, times are times, and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so then let us go ahead and get into rating the film. So if you are familiar with this, I use a tier system. So of course we've got the top tier, which is top tier Disney. And of course this is your own personal rating system. You don't have to worry about what anybody else might think about this film. This is your own personal rating. So you've got your top tier, which is obviously the best of the best. Top tier Disney, it's the standouts. You've got the first tier, great, maybe just not your favorite, but it's pretty good. Then you've got the third tier, or that was second tier. Then you've got your third tier, which is not great. You know, not horrible though, just kind of there. And then you've got the fourth tier, which is not a tier, it is the vault. Those are those films that we wish Disney would take another look at and just, you know, throw in the vault, throw away the key. We don't need these anymore. So, Kelli, I really don't have to ask, but I'm going to anyway, because it's part of the show. But where would you put Alice in Wonderland?
I like the tier system. And I like, it's what I try to do as well. You really got to break down favorites and best, because sometimes what our favorite films are not objectively the best. So I love this one. My 1, 2, 3 is Alice in Wonderland, Sword in the Stone, and then some rotating of either Sleeping Beauty or Beauty and the Beast.
Sure.
You know, but I can't objectively sit here and go like, The Sword in the Stone is one of the best Disney features ever, because like I couldn't recommend it to people. And it's a little bit similar with Alice. I think if you recommend it to other people, they might give it like, say, like a 3 out of 5 or things like that, if they didn't grow up and find their way to it. But people that love the shit out of it will give it a 5. And I'm one of those people. So like for me, it's in the top tier. I rank it up there with the Renaissance films to me. But objectively, if I was like trying to be like, if I could break it down between like what I think the best of the best Disney is, it'd probably sit that first tier.
Sure.
So I give it 2 different rankings, which makes sense because it's nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably put it upper second tier. Because like you said, it is like the nonsensicalness of it. It is like no other Disney film, which is one thing that I do love about it. But at the same time, because of that, it also might not scratch that itch that you're looking for if you specifically want to watch a Disney film.
It doesn't hit the emotional beats of even like a Beauty and the Beast, a Moana, something recent. Like it's not the apples and oranges that you can compare the two so easily. So that does, I get it. It lessens the esteem just a little bit.
Sure. And I mean, I will say it is one that every time I visit it, I have fun with it, but it's not one that I visit a lot. And so because of that, it can't be in my top tier because it's not up there for me. But like I said, I put it high second tier because when I watch it, I love it. But it also is one that you kind of have to be in the mood for because, you know, nonsense is not always comforting.
Very true. Very true. Yes. It can be frustrating, some of the scenes and some of the characters. So I get
that. Absolutely. Well, Kelli, thank you so much for being here. Before we go, I want to go ahead and remind everyone that this is the Flying Cow Network. You can find us, obviously, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. You can also contact me at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email me at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. And there's also a Facebook group you can check out. I'm usually posting stuff typically about Movie Battles, which Movie Battles is a show I do on YouTube. Like I said, Kelli is the current champion, current defending undefeated champ. And you can check that out on YouTube. The best way I've found to find it is to type in the Flying Cow Movie Battles, and it'll be one of the first things you see there. But Kelli, anything that you have to plug, and feel free if there is anything else that you would like people to know about, even that you're just enjoying watching or listening to or anything like that, feel free to mention those things as well.
Sure. Well, yes, I'm frequently on. I've been delighted to be able to be on Movie Battles a lot recently, which is nice. So I can be found over there. I'm generally in the online trivia zone. I pop up in matches here and there. I've just launched my podcast as well. It's been a really long passion project, and I've been so lucky to get wonderful people in the community, such as yourself, to come on and speak about what makes them passionate about Disney. So it's been a really lovely journey to be on. So that's Doing Disney. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, and that podcast, I mean, you don't have to feel like you are, stabbing me in the back by listening to that, because you guys do it's different. I mean, you're very much talking to friends and things like that, but I would say yours is probably a little bit more clean, a little bit more professional.
We got little segments and things.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I listened to the finished product of our episode,
yes.
The fact that you got that down to less than an hour and a half, it boggled my mind.
I've kept the full unedited version just in case I ever have the space to be able to put it all up. Yeah. But yes, I do. It's much different because it's more like picking favorites. It's more like the rewatchables where like you're looking at for different categories. So
and also you're not just doing, like, I'm only doing Disney and Pixar animated, but you are doing, I think the most recent one that I just listened to was your Iron Man episode. So
anything with the Disney brand is fair game, basically. But that's been a joy. Things I've been watching. That's hard. It's been sorry, dead air. Yeah. Not fun.
No, you're fine. I've almost stopped doing it because I don't get to watch things very much anymore.
That's the thing. I've been watching things for either trivia or for the podcast or for doing things, or just a lot of YouTube, like love some meme compilations and things like that, just going back and watching Comfort Vines and stuff. But no, thank you so much for having me. I've had an absolute joy today. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. It has been great having you. And I hope those out there listening have also enjoyed it. Teddy obviously did. Throwing in his 2 cents there. You like Alice in Wonderland, buddy? Good stuff.
In our world, he wouldn't say woof. He'd say, yes, Clay.
Yes. I frequently speak for him. So yeah. Yeah, it's a good movie. I like it. It's good. So don't currently have I don't know when the next episode will be out, so I don't know what it's going to be about, but I'm sure it'll be good. We'll be talking to another fun person then, but until then, thanks again, Kelli. Thanks to all of those out there listening. Make sure to check out the next episode, but until then, moo.
Mm.